Co-Lewis, Coexist, Co-Lewis, it all ties together. In fact, one of my very special guests today, we have two amazing women joining us today in our path to enlighten everybody about what's going on in the world when it pertains to animals and the environment. And the name Coexist came from my friend, Connie Edwards McGaughy, who is on. Hi, Connie, how are you? She's the one.
Good. Great, Co.
She came up with the concept. I said, Connie, I need something fabulous. And I know you're the girl who can come up with the logo and the name. And she's on the board of directors with me at Nsefu Wildlife. And she's so creative. And the Coexist that we have, that everybody loves the name, and the conversation for conservation came from that girl right there, Miss Connie. So Connie, welcome. You're also the founder and creator of the Carrot Underground. We're going to talk to you about that. And my other very special guest, which again kind of has a family link to us, is Kaleigh Rhoads of Kind Safari and Charlie's Acres, which is a sanctuary in Sonoma. And Kaleigh is the amazing daughter of an amazing person on our board, Christine Rhoads. And you know, when we were talking about putting a show together, I like to put people who kind of their missions meld together. And I can't think of two women who belong on the same show more than the two of you, because of what you guys are doing in the world, your outlook on the world. And I'm excited to have you. So Kaleigh, welcome to the show. Welcome to Coexist.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm really excited. So what we're going to do is I'm going to talk to Connie first, then we're going to talk to you. And then the last few minutes of the show, we're going to solve all the world problems, like in 5 minutes. We'll have it all dialed in. Girls are in charge right now. So anyway, welcome again. And I know, we're still going through COVID. We're still dealing with some very difficult times. So anytime that you get to spend with me, I'm so grateful for. Thank you for supporting this show. I'm a little blown away, because when I started this idea of supporting great organizations and giving them a platform to, get a new audience and new supporters, I thought maybe I'd have like 5 people watch it. I was hoping 5, friends, after I bribed them with something to watch the show. And so far, it's doing really well. So I'm glad people care about what's happening in the world. And I can't think of somebody more compassionate and loving than my friend Connie. And Connie and I met through her brother. Her brother was a listener of mine and said, you really need to talk to my sister. She loves animals and protecting them as much as you. Her name is Connie. You guys ought to meet. So lo and behold, we did meet over, a dinner at your home, and it was love at first sight, friends for life. And we're so happy you're on the Nsefu board. But you are very accomplished in your own life, Connie. You started saving animals at the age of 8. You worked for the Fund for Animals as a coordinator. And now you are the creator and founder and the voice and, the force behind the Carrot Underground. So tell us about the Carrot Underground. Tell us about your life first. Like, what led you here? Was there something specific that led you on the path of conservation and caring for animals? Tell us the story of Connie.
Well, I think like a lot of us, I just grew up with a tremendous empathy for animals. I was lucky enough to be raised by parents who were very kind, generous, good-hearted people who allowed my brother and I to grow up in a house full of animals, rescued animals. My mom, if we found an injured bunny or a fledgling baby bird, we would take it in and we'd nurse it back to health. And so that was my initiation as a child. And, but I also grew up as a meat eater, and it didn't help at all to cook. And so have family dinner, fixings always built around, even as a child, as much as my mother's cooking, I eat ants. And this was back in the 1960s. And so, my mom would say, well, honey, because we need to eat animals, we need them for you to grow up strong and healthy. And these animals are raised for meat. So I didn't really question it back then. It was just a given that farm animals, cows and sheep and pigs, they were to be eaten. And as I got older, I just had to keep questioning it. It's like, well, but how is a cow different from our pet cat or our dog or other animals that we love? And when I was 10, I told my parents I want to become a vegetarian. And my parents,
wow.
When I was 10 years old, and I said, I don't want to eat meat anymore. And my mom, and my dad, they wanted to be supportive, but my mom was terrified that it would stunt my growth somehow if I didn't consume animal protein. So she had a very nice man who was a family physician who lived a couple doors down from us. And she asked him to come over and talk to me about all the reasons why it wasn't a good idea for me to stop eating meat. And back then, there just wasn't a lot of information available. I mean, in fairness to the doctor, he was dealing with what kind of nutritional information, which was not a lot that MDs had back then. And so I decided, well, heck, if I can't do it now, when I'm an adult, I'm going to become a vegetarian. I want to stop eating meat. And when I was 19 years old, I was having a wonderful meal with my family. My mother prepared my favorite dish, which was what I used to jokingly refer to sometimes as like a mooingly rare piece of filet mignon and a baked potato and salad. And we were sitting there and I was eating my steak. And I had my first couple of bites, which were good. And then I had my third bite. And I had, the only thing I can describe it as an epiphany. I had an incredible, overwhelming, almost a visceral experience. I'll call it an awakening. I made the connection. All of a sudden, that piece of steak that I just put in my mouth was, it became, I, for lack of better words, I felt like I was chewing on a piece of my own body. I felt like, what am I doing? All of a sudden, I just went, whoa, what is this that I just put in my mouth? So I discreetly spit it into my napkin, set it aside, and excused myself from the dinner table. I did, but it was the very last time I ever ate a bite of meat, and that was the summer of 1977. So do the math. It's been a long time.
That's amazing.
Since I've eaten meat. And so over the years, I sometimes refer to it as the dark ages because I was really alone. I was the only vegetarian at that time that I knew. And it was such a challenge going out to eat. My friends didn't know what to serve me. All of a sudden the invitations to come over for dinner slowed down really quickly. And I realized that for me to continue to have a social life, I better learn how to prepare things that everybody could enjoy. And then fast forward several years later, I met my husband, who at the time still ate meat as well. But when he met me and learned about my philosophy and why I did what I did, he said, I'm in. I'm going to do the same thing with you. If you're not eating meat, neither am I. And he's also a very good cook, might I add.
Yeah,
so and very creative. And so over the years, the last 30 years we've been together, we've had the best time creating. My gosh, let me tell you. So we raised a family. We raised our kids without meat, and so we've started just creating recipes. And the big thing about us with our recipes is we wanted to be able to still enjoy a lot of those traditional family recipes that we grew up with, that we loved. And we wanted to find out a way to still be able to enjoy those flavors, those textures, but know that we're not harming animals in the process. And so we've, over the years, have accumulated all these wonderful recipes, and a lot of them are just now veganized versions because we are vegan now. We do not consume any animal products. And we've had the best time with it. And our friends started asking, well, do you have recipes? I'd like to try this. And then we started posting photos of our meals on Facebook and on social media. And at first I thought my friends were going to think I was obnoxious for constantly posting, my dinner plate online. And instead, I got this really great response. My friends would say, no, more, we want to see more. And that's when I realized I need to do something with this. And so I decided, what's the fastest, easiest way to share recipes, but to create a recipe blog. And so that was really the genesis of the Carrot Underground.
With what we do with Nsefu Wildlife, we work in Africa. We're based in Africa. We're an anti-poaching foundation. That's the foundation that I co-founded and Connie is a board member of. There is a disconnect between animals that we're saving, endangered animals and stuff like that, and the animals that we know every day, the cow, the pig, the chicken, because they've been such a part of our society. And people always just look to them as a food source, not a being, not a living being. So the reason having the both of you on, you and Kaleigh, is we're making that connection of when you say you love animals and care about animals, you are not denying yourself anything in your food choices, because vegan and vegetarian have come such a long way. And I see way more people living that lifestyle now. They're making the connect like you did so young. And it's important that they have access to food that they like. Because a lot of people, because I know what you're talking about, like when I'm there, people are like, we have some sprouts and some chips. Like everybody else is eating. And I felt like an outsider, like, wow, I feel like I'm all by myself here. I'll just bring my own food. It's an awkward thing. It can be a really awkward thing. I know what you're talking about. It makes me laugh because I'm like, everybody's eating and I'll sit there and say, does that, palm oil, palm oil is destroying the forest in Borneo, right? And they're like, oh, can I just eat? I'm like, oh, okay. So I get it. I totally get it. But I try to be open with everybody and enlighten everybody. And that's why I'm glad when you started the Carrot Underground, I'm like, you go, girl, because this is a way for people to really learn and experiment with delicious food. Like when we came over to your house for dinner, Mitch was like, oh my God, this is so good. And it's vegan. And he was like stoked on life that it was really good. And he was like, oh my God, I could eat this all day long. So that's why we want John as our cook, because he rocks. He totally rocks. So anyway, before we get a little bit more into the Carrot Underground, one of the things that your brother told me right out of the get-go was, he goes, do you know she saved the goats on Catalina Island? And I'm like, no, I didn't know there was a goat issue. So lo and behold, you were one of the people to get them off the island because they were in jeopardy. And your work with Cleveland Emery, Fun for Animals, you have street cred when it comes to animals.
Well, like Kaleigh, I've gotten my hands dirty. It's one thing to sit in the comfort of my home writing pretty recipes and taking pretty photos. It's another thing to be there with the animals as they're panicked and their lives are at risk. And it's hard, grueling work, but it's the direct action work in animals and protecting animals that really feeds my soul. The case with they were actually the goats on the San Clemente Island, which is neighbors Catalina Island. It's part of the Channel Islands. Yeah. But it was a situation where, there was a very, very large, thriving herd of feral goats that were not indigenous to the island. And there was a biological survey done in the area saying that there were some endangered species of, I think, of reptile and plants, and that the goats were being destructive of that habitat, so the goats had to go. Well, the irony is that this is also an island that is used for ballistic testing by the U.S. military. So they're concerned about this is a whole nother story, but I just find that rather odd that the goats were as big as an issue when there was also a lot of destruction going on with bombs blowing up on the area. But the problem is that the military had determined that the only way the goat problem was to have sharpshooters in helicopters fly over the island and take goats down by shooting them from the air. They had no plan on rescuing the injured or picking up the dead. They were just going to leave them scattered because they said it was too dangerous for them to do that. And there was a very big news report going on. It was in national news about this controversy. This was back in the mid-'80s. And I overheard I was watching the news one night and just thought, Island, that's not far from where I live. What can I do to help? And this is before the internet. This is before cell phones. This is back old dial-up phone. And the only thing I could think of, I heard about the Fund for Animals trying to do something. So I called the long-distance operator, asking for a phone number to the Fund for Animals. She found one in New York. Can you, yeah, do you remember this, Kaleigh? This is, again, dark ages.
Like, I'm from the new generation. I only know internet.
Yeah. And I'm calling probably 8, 9 o'clock at night, and I'm calling an office in New York City, which would have been probably close to midnight there. And I just left a message on their answering machine. And then later on, I'm talking to my mother on the phone when all of a sudden the operator interrupts our phone call. Do you remember this, Co? I got a call. No. I'm talking to my mother. An operator cuts in on the conversation and said, I have an emergency call from a Mr. Cleveland Emery. He needs to speak to you. And my mom knew who Cleveland Emery was. And I, of course, knew who Cleveland Emery was. And I'm just like, my heart skipped a beat. And I thought, yes, I'll take the call. And all I know is within that 5 minutes, that man being on the phone, he said, I need you to find a place that we can house several hundred goats in San Diego. Can you find that place for me? And I said, sure, I can do it. And that's how it all started.
Oh my God, I'm talking to Cleveland Emery. Like, what? Am I in a dream? I'm in Cleveland Emery.
Yeah, I'll do whatever you ask.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah. It's like the Gandhi of helping him. I mean, truly, in every single way. I mean, that's one of those stories that you never forget. Like, did that just happen? And all of a sudden, you're in the goat rescue business. I mean,
goat rescue, and then trying to find a place in San Diego County that I could do that. And I went to Kaleigh. I went to every animal sanctuary in Southern California, and finally found out about this very eccentric elderly lady who had a few acres out in Ramona that I went to visit her, and I told her what I needed. And I said, do you mind if I house about 500 goats on your property? And she just looked at me and she said, I think that sounds lovely. And I'm just like, oh my God.
Hey, and I'm laughing. I'm step away from that eccentric old woman with a million animals. Just one step away.
She has a story unto herself, but the happy ending is that we not only did we place probably 1,000 goats on her property over the course of several months, she ended up gifting her land and she had a kind of rather dilapidated no-kill dog and cat shelter is what she was operating there. But she gave it all to Cleveland Emery and the Fund for Animals. And today, the Fund for Animals Wildlife Rehab Center is one of the largest, most accomplished wildlife rehab centers in the state of California.
That is amazing. It's amazing how you intersected in life. And that's what I found with doing this show is the people I've had on, the cross section, like the people I run into, like I'm so blown away by the people I've had on this show. And this includes present company, because I'm meeting people who see a crisis, who see a problem, an issue. And instead of going, oh, that's too bad, that's awful, they actually do something. They get up
Yeah.
and they actually do something. And I just want to share, personally speaking, when I started Nsefu with my co-founder Victory Wallace, I thought I had one of those epiphanies. I mean, I've been working with animals and I was raised in Africa, and I had this moment where God just was on me about this whole thing going on in Africa. I mean, he just would not let my heart or my head have any peace. And I'm like, okay, if you want me to do this, you are going to have to help me, because I'm a disc jockey in San Diego. What am I going to be doing starting a foundation in Zambia? Okay. With somebody I really don't know very well at this point in time. But because I listened and I thought I have to do something, because I did it, it was the greatest thing I've ever done in my life. If I never do another thing, yeah, I may go down in flames, but at least I tried. You know what I mean? And I feel and been inspired by you guys, because you did the same thing. You had a calling on you and you did something. And I want somebody who's listening to this show who says, you know what, this one issue's really been bothering me. I'm going to do something now. I'm going to take a stand and fight for whatever it is, you know what I mean, to inspire people. And because you did that, you've inspired so many people. You're one of the kindest and most true souls I've ever met. And so anything you say goes with me. And when you started the Carrot Underground, it's awesome. I want you to check out her Facebook page, because you're going to see these beautiful photos and really easy to do recipes. It's amazing. It's amazing what you're accomplishing right now.
Yeah, as you had mentioned before, there's this upswell in interest in people either reducing or eliminating animal products from their diets. And it's very encouraging to me. I've been doing this now for a long time. And for the longest time, it would be very disheartening and frustrating for me, particularly when I'd go out to eat, to be able to go to a restaurant and there's nothing on the menu I could order. And I kept thinking to myself, surely I'm not the only one. And so over the years, there's been this very slow but gradual uptick. A couple of years ago, I saw the cover of Forbes magazine, and they had this picture. It was of a cow on the front of the magazine, and it said 2019, the year of the vegan. I mean, right now, I have goosebumps just thinking about it. To think that I would see something like that in my lifetime, you've no idea how really encouraging it was to me. And now with the carrotunderground.com, and then also I do have a Facebook page. I belong to about 50 different vegan and plant-based related Facebook groups. And it's so interesting to me to see the conversations of people talking about why they became vegan, the struggles that they go through, all these different things. And the bottom line is that people are starting to care. They're getting an awakening. They're realizing that not only is it good for the animals not to eat them, but it's good for them. It's so much better for their health, and it's so much better for the planet.
It's so much
it's a win-win-win when you
and people don't realize that when they've gone cage free with chickens now, those animals are still in factories and still, it's getting better, but there's a different, don't be completely fooled by cage free. It's not quite what you think. It's getting better. And when people see babies ripped away from mothers, and imagine your child being ripped away from you when you just delivered this child, the systematic, the cruelty and the unconscionable treatment of these animals on a billions times a billions a year of what we're doing and inflicting on these animals. It keeps me up at night. It literally keeps me up at night. And it just is a choice. And people are like, well, I like steak. I'm like, you know what? That's fine. Do me a favor. Do a little research, kind of look behind the story of how you got that steak. I a couple of shows ago, I likened it with Bobby Brink of Lions, Tigers, and Bears. you see that lion and you're thinking, oh, that's a beautiful lion. Wow, powerful, magnificent. But if you open the curtain behind that lion and saw the wreckage and despair and anguish behind, the exotic pet trade, people will be like, oh no, that's wrong. Same thing with farm animals, domesticated animals. And it's just something we have to be aware of.
Yeah. Well, those are definitely things that Kaleigh knows firsthand, and I'm sure she'll probably talk about a little bit about that.
Yeah,
but she is,
there. She's gonna
personally Oh yeah, she can tell you about the stories about these animals and what they go through.
But I love it, Connie. So again, your Facebook page for the Carrot Underground and the carrotunderground.com if you want to get some recipes, send her a message, share your experience with her, because you're going to really love the site and really love what she's done. And she walks the walk, talks the talk, where she's saving animals in Africa and she's saving animals here. Wherever there's an animal, Connie's trying to save it. So that's awesome. So, Connie, feel free to chime in. We're going to be talking to Kaleighs Rhoads right now. Kaleigh, the daughter of one of our Nsefu board members, Christine Rhoads. And Kaleigh, I have to tell you, when I read up on you, and you're so young, and I look at what you've accomplished at this age, I'm like, okay, I feel like I've achieved nothing in life. You are a UC Berkeley grad with a BA in anthropology and conservation. And so when you graduated, you said, you know what, I'm heading to Borneo to work with the orangutans, because we all do that, right after we graduate. And off you went. Let's start there, and then we'll talk about Charlie's Acres and Kind Safari. But let's start with you. Take us down the path of where you came, where you were enlightened with animals.
Yeah, so I think I've really always had a passion for animals. Probably by the time I was 7 or 8 years old, I could school any adult on wildlife trafficking and the fur trade and endangered species. I'm not sure why I had that much knowledge about that at the time, but definitely always passionate, always wanted to work with animals. And so when I went to Berkeley, I took my first primatology class. And so I knew that I wanted to do. So I went straight to Borneo right after graduation. I actually had gone vegan in college. Right? I guess I should backtrack a little bit. I went vegan in college after taking this really wonderful class that I'm so grateful that was offered, called Social Justice, expanded to our furry friends. And so this was all about animal welfare being a social justice issue. And so we went to various sanctuaries and animal shelters on our spring break and got to volunteer there. And so that's when I knew that I could no longer consume any animal products in my diet or other areas in my lifestyle. So I went vegan. In Borneo, I just really, really loved orangutans. And so I wanted to work with them firsthand and see what these rescues were like. And it was so incredible getting to spend time with them, but really, seeing the reality of the situation. The orangutans are really, they're losing their homes mostly due to deforestation because of palm oil. Yep. Palm oil is, all about palm oil.
Palm oil is in everything. I want you to just do me a favor. If you are watching this or listening to this podcast, I want you, next time you go grocery shopping and you're getting your stuff, I want you to see how much palm oil is in everything. And that right there is the devil, because it is absolutely decimating Borneo. I mean, the deforestation, like the acreage per day, is frightening. And these animals they're just so magnificent. They're so wonderful.
Yeah, they really are they're so human-like. I just think of them as like our evolutionary cousins. And when you spend time with an orangutan, you really can just see the gears turning in their head. They're so thoughtful, but they've lost well over 80% of their habitat in the past 20 years due to this deforestation. Wow. And so even when these sanctuaries are able to take them in and rescue them, they do a wonderful job of rehabilitating the young ones, but there's really nowhere to release them to. So it is a huge struggle there.
Yeah. And I know, like, with orangutan rescue, like they try to buy little islands to put the animals on. But again, when you've wiped out 80%, where are these animals going to go? How are they going to live? I mean, they have to be, people don't realize sometimes that these animals are significant to the health of the environment. They have a job in the forest. They have like the elephants in Africa. They have a job. If the elephants are gone, you will see the collapse of the environment. It's just because of what they do. Same with orangutans. Everything has a purpose. And when you remove that purpose, when you take that animal out, collapse follows right after it. And we literally can't do it. And one of the things we can do is be aware of palm oil.
Yeah, and a really great way to do that, because it is overwhelming. Like you said, when you're already saying, I'm looking for vegan food, and then you're going to cut out palm oil as well, and then maybe you're looking for fair trade products as well. I use the app Buycott, Buycott, and you can kind of join these campaigns. So I have mine set saying I'm vegan and I don't eat palm oil and I prefer to buy fair trade products. And then you can actually scan barcodes with your phone of items in the store, and it'll let you know if this item is conflicting with any of the values that you've added onto there. So it's really helpful.
And it makes you feel good knowing that you're buying something and you're not destroying anything. You're not killing anything. You're not destroying anything. You're giving somebody a fair wage, if that's the case. I mean, it makes you feel good when you're shopping. I mean, what's wrong with that?
Exactly. Yeah. So after my experience in Borneo, I returned to the US and I began working with chimpanzees who had been rescued from the pet and entertainment industry. But like you mentioned, working with these exotic animals, I started to see this real disconnect between how these exotic and wild animals were valued and how kind of more common farmed animals were valued. And as we were talking about the importance of saving chimpanzees and the environment, and like talking about all these environmental issues, we were serving steak at our fundraisers. And so this disconnect just really started to get to me. I actually, after that, went to go work for PETA so that I could learn more about vegan issues and the environment and animal agriculture. Just really learned a lot in the year that I was there. And then now I'm at Charlie's Acres as the programs manager. And so we are a farm animal sanctuary with 150 rescued farm animals who've all come from situations where they would have ended up on the dinner plate. Many of them have come from abuse and neglect. And we provide them a forever home, as well as really focusing on education. So we invite people out here to the sanctuary to hear the stories of these underrepresented animals and get to make a connection with them.
You know, in the news every once in a while, the ones that, and that they do impact, is when you see a cow on a slaughter truck and they escape and that cow runs, and all of a sudden you realize everybody's cheering that cow on because they know what's going on. I think people were aware of really what was going on and stopped for a moment and looked at these stories and stuff like that. And you said you have visitors from around the world at Charlie's Acres because people want to learn and they want to feel like they're part of something that's helping an area of the world of animals, whatever the world is. And every time that Connie and your mom go up there, I always say, I text, thanks for the invite. Thanks for telling me you're going up there, because I want to be up there too, because I want to see the place. I mean, I can't wait to see the place. So thanks, Connie. No guilt there. No guilt there. So anyway, you've been at Charlie's Acres now how long?
About a year and a half now.
So you're the program manager. And what are you doing with Kind Safari? So tell us about that, and when is it going to be starting?
Yeah, so Kind Safari is, it was actually kind of inspired by the work we were doing at Charlie's Acres. So when the pandemic hit, we really had to make these adjustments and switch over from these in-person tours to virtual tours. And when we started doing these virtual tours on Airbnb, we weren't really sure if it would translate, if people would be into them, but they just became so popular and we were blown away by the success of it. And we started reaching people from all around the world. We had visitors from China and South Africa and Chile and Panama and Europe and Singapore, everywhere. And so my roommate and coworker and we animal nerds that we are, really wanted to see if we could bring this to other sanctuaries around the world and kind of get our wildlife fixed that way. she also works with wild animals. And so we just, grew up on these shows like Sabumafu and Jack Hanna and all these, just watching as much Animal Planet as we could and loving these shows. But then watching them as an adult, we're realizing that a lot of these shows were actually exploiting animals by keeping them in captivity to bring to TV studios. And so we really wanted to create kind of this version of these shows, but for a new generation that really is more compassionate. And so we're really wanting to highlight sanctuaries and animal rescues and then wildlife researchers.
Yeah. And I mean, it's important. And we've talked at our board meetings that, we have an internet issue over there because the internet's crap in Zambia. Like if you can get like one email out, it's like, oh, hallelujah. But we wanted to do some live footage of safaris and going out. Like the first day I landed, was it last year or the year before? When I was pulling up to the safari camp, the Como Safari Camp, there were 60 elephants right outside of the gate. And I mean, I took some photos and stuff like that, but if I could have sent that feed live, do you know how many people would have checked it out? Because they're just sitting there. So we just sat there. We weren't going to have them move. I'm thinking, I'm exhausted. I'm so tired, but I'm not moving because I'm in heaven, because they just sit there watching us eating some leaves and, trumpeting. And all of a sudden, finally, they moved along and, you felt like you were one with them. You were part of nature. You weren't interfering. You were just being. And that's the best thing. I really want to capture that. Like what you're saying, we can capture it so people can live it. If they can't be there, they can feel what it's like and get a consistent dose of different animals and different experiences. I think that's a great idea. So it starts when? September 20th?
September 20th, we're going to launch our first episode, and it's going to be about chimpanzees. And it's going to feature interviews with the care staff and veterinarians at Ngamba Island Chimpanzee Sanctuary in Uganda. So we're very, very excited about that.
Yeah, that's awesome. So will it be a show a week or every few weeks or?
It's going to be every 2 weeks. We've got a 10-episode plan so far.
That's awesome. That's really exciting. So again, Charlie's Acres Farm Sanctuary. And how big is that sanctuary up there?
We're 32 acres, and we're actually big enough that with the current wildfires raging, we have absorbed 2 other complete sanctuaries into our sanctuary.
Oh, wow. Yeah. The fires are they're making California rethink everything, because it's not like if a fire's going to happen, it's when it's going to happen, and how we're all dealing with it. And so I'm sure you have your hands full. Those 32 acres are probably hopping with critters. And
they are.
Action. So let me ask you guys, I think about this a lot. So if you had 2 important things that you could share with the audience, like the 2 biggest things that you could say, if you do this, you can help this, or I wish people would, what items would you think of? Like what actions, what things are on your heart? Like, I wish people knew, like for me, I always just say, I wish you knew what happened behind the scenes. If you knew, be brave, because it may not be pretty, but be strong enough to know that if you look behind the scenes of something, of what's going on with an animal, it's not going to be pretty, but do something about it, because you're scared to look at it or say, I don't want to know about that. But those animals are going through it. You're not going through it. You're just witnessing it. They're going through it. That's always something that's bothered me. What would you guys say?
I would say,
okay.
Oh, go ahead, Connie.
Go ahead, Connie.
No. Okay. Well, I was going to say that in response to what you're saying, Co, yeah, there's a lot of really eye-opening and heart-wrenching information out there. And I will say that seeing even just still shots of it back in the day when I could get a hold of pamphlets from like PETA and so on, it really helped educate me and open my eyes. I do believe most people know in their logical brains that there's no such thing as the happy cows. You know, the marketing and commercialism from the dairy industry and so on, it feeds us these images that these animals live happy, idyllic lives, like the cage-free chickens. It's not what you think. And so I think that people struggle with that. I think I do hear from a lot of people saying, you know, I really want to cut down on meat, but I don't know how. I'm scared. I've actually had, and that was a real eye-opener to me when I heard two friends say to me, you know, I would eat less meat, but I'm afraid to. And I said, what are you afraid of? And they said, we don't know where to start. So this is if I were to say to anybody, if I told you that you have the power to change the world by doing a very simple thing, would you do it? You know, a lot of us struggle with the fact that there's just an overwhelming onslaught of bad news every single day. And particularly with pandemic, it makes you feel helpless and powerless. And if you knew that if you did one thing that you personally could affect positive change in our planet, doing something good for yourself, for the animals, and for the world, and that one thing is going vegan. Now, I know it's not easy for a lot of people to suddenly just say, what? You mean I just stop what I'm doing? I stop what I'm eating. If you decide, a lot of people do what's called meatless Mondays. If you decided you would just one day a week opt to go completely meat and dairy free, just one day a week, pick a day, Monday, whenever, then give yourself a couple weeks. Then maybe try 2 or maybe 3 days a week. Do it in baby steps. You don't have to do it all at once. There is so much information out there as far as what, you know, to do to make sure that you get all of your nutritional needs. You know, the Kaleigh knows the number one question we're always asked by people is, how do you get your protein? It's probably the question that we all want to just roll our eyes in the back of our heads every time we hear it. But it is a valid question to ask if you've never explored it before. And the best response I give people is, where do you think the animals you eat get their protein? Where do cows how do they get those big muscles? They get it from food, they get it from plants. And that's where we get our protein. There's more protein available in plant-based diet than people realize. And most people get more protein than they actually need. So it's actually if you have concerns, talk to your doctor. Like any diet, maybe talk to your doctor. But I like to really encourage people when it comes to making a difference. Here's the cool thing. You become vegan, or if you decide to even just go one day a week with a vegan, do you know, in fact, I wrote this down, by going vegan for just one day a week, you'll save one animal's life. You will save, let's see here, where do I have this? I know I've got, here we go. Not eating vegan for one day, 1,100 gallons of water is saved. 35 pounds of grain that could have gone to feed people instead of a meat animal. 30 square feet of forest, 20 pounds of CO2 that was not produced and put into the atmosphere, and you've saved one animal's life. And so that's just one day of not eating meat.
Day.
So there is one day. Yeah. And so there's a powerful, measurable thing you can do to help protect the planet. And that's it.
Yeah, because people don't realize the cattle industry, oh my God, it's just like this voracious appetite of food. It creates methane. It just churns through so much, the volume. The destruction that the cattle industry is doing is
destruction.
Oh my God. Yeah. It is just a no-win situation. It literally, you are absolutely right. It is just destroying the fabric of our country because of the amount of resources we have to throw into it to maintain it and grow it. It's awful. It's absolutely awful. So
it is the primary cause of, no, it's the primary cause of the deforestation of the rainforests. And,
I hear you. Good one. I like that. And connecting the animal in between as where they got the protein, making that connect. I like that. Miss Kaleigh, what's your big thing?
I think if there's one thing I could really get across to people, I know it's very overwhelming even when you do hear about the statistics of animal agriculture, to hear a number like 56 billion animals are killed in the US every year. That's an unfathomable number.
Billion.
And it really just like, it's not personal and it doesn't hit you. And so instead of thinking of them as a number or a product, I would really just love if people could remember that these are individual beings that have mothers and babies and friends and, you know, things that are important to them and natural behaviors and emotions. They can feel pain and heartache. And it is so easy to impact these animals' lives. To piggyback onto what Connie was saying about how easy it is to go vegan, I really like to encourage people not to think about it as depriving yourself of meat, dairy, and eggs, but about trying new foods. I think I read recently there are 30,000 different edible plants, but people are still eating like the same 5 animals.
Yeah.
So if you just, you know, think about it as trying new plant-based foods, and as you find new plant-based foods that you love, they're gonna just crowd out the old animal products on your plate.
Sure. And the thing about it is we're not just talking about a split second in time with animals like 56 billion. These animals have no life in the time they're on this planet. There is no quality of life. They're jammed into cages. They're shipping sheep from Australia in the dead of summer. And these animals are literally baking to death on these ships to go to the Middle East. I mean, this is what we're talking about. These animals have absolutely no chance, no quality of life, no tenderness, no nothing. They're just inanimate objects to so many people, and people need to make that connection that there are lives there. These are emotional creatures who are empathetic and who love and care and react. And that we're doing 56 billion. I don't even want to know what's going on in the rest of the world. I can't even process 56 billion in the US. I can't even
Exactly.
I can't even go there.
Yeah.
So, well, that's a staggering thing. So, if somebody wants to come visit, I know it's COVID now. If somebody wanted to visit Charlie's Acres, how do they go about? Do you make a reservation? Do you just show up? Like, how do people visit your sanctuary?
Yeah, if you visit charliesacres.org, you can head on over to our visit page, and there's going to be information about virtual tours. But we are doing some small 10-person or less in-person tours, and so you can sign up for one of those directly on our website or organize a private tour with me, and all the information is right there on our website.
And Kind Safari. Now, how would people find that show? Where do they go? And we know September 20th is a launch date. Where do they watch it?
We're going to be hosting it on YouTube, but the easiest place to watch it is just head on over to kindsafari.com, and all the info will be right there for you.
Are you excited about that?
I'm so excited.
Awesome. I think it's awesome. I mean, doing this new venture was scary to me, but I'm so glad I'm doing it. You know, I'm trying to help people connect the dots with things and help organizations and people. And so not only are you doing work with Nsefu Wildlife, member, you though are you're the leader force behind the Carrot Underground. This is, if you are thinking about being a vegetarian or vegan and you want some really delicious recipes and you can learn a bunch of stuff, the carrotunderground.com is the location. You've got a Facebook page, and your pictures literally look like they're out of a magazine. I'm like, what, did Better Homes and Gardens like shoot this photo? Like, it's all beautiful flowers, gingham. I'm like, oh my God, you're so artistic. I'm like, who did those pictures? I'm like, I did. I'm like, no, you didn't. I mean, these are really nice photos. So it's beautiful. You're just showing people a style that's a great life, better for them, it's better for the world. And it just, it just takes one to hear this show, you guys, and that person could change literally, you know what I mean? That one who thought,
power of one.
That. I know that. So, guys, I'm glad you joined me today. I've learned the beauty of the show is, people learn and say, oh, wow, I can't tell you how many emails of Oh, wow. I didn't know that. I just learned something new. Like what? I'm like, wait, I'm with you. I'm learning stuff as we go as well. So it's awesome. And again, the impetus also of the show is creating that, thinking about it into action. If there's something out there that is wrong, you witnessed it, you know it's wrong, and you're like, I don't know where to start. What do I do? How do I start? You know what? Take one foot in front of the other. Just make a call, say this isn't right. You know what? Email me at coe@nsefu.org. If there's something you want to tackle or look at, I'll try to put you on with somebody and connect you with somebody. It just takes that one step. And don't be afraid, because we've all been afraid. I still cry a lot of nights thinking about, oh my God, how am I going to take care of the Rangers? How am I going to pay for this in the world of COVID? Trust me, the stress is crazy right now. But you know what? I just wake up and I think, okay, one foot in front of the other. What are we going to do? And that's what you guys did. You saw something and you acted upon it. It just takes doing something, and you can change the world. And you guys are doing it. Kaleigh, I am so impressed with you for your age and what you've accomplished. Your mother must be incredibly proud. I'm so proud. I mean, really, I'm just so impressed with you, and you're going to inspire a lot of people your age. Absolutely. Connie, you're one of the kindest, truest souls I've ever known, friends for life. And thank you for what you're doing and making that connection and living that life. So I appreciate you both, ladies. And again, thank you so much for joining me on Coexist. And I hope you've been enjoying the show. Please share it with your friends. And if you've got any suggestions of a great guest, I'd love to hear about it. Again, coe@nsefu.org. Ladies, I love you. Thank you for loving the world, and thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Great. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
You
Bye.
too.
Bye.